בכנסת הגדולה. הוא היה אומר, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על התורה, ועל העבודה, ועל גמילות חסדים. So when opening this Mishnah, the first section of the Mishnah is introduction as to who Shimon HaTzadik was. Shimon HaTzadik היה משיירי כנסת הגדולה. The question number one is, why did it need to mention that? This is not a history book. This is a book of Torah. Every line that is being taught in Perkei Avos is coming to teach us a message. If it's coming to tell us Shimon HaTzadik היה משיירי כנסת הגדולה, there's some message for us to know from that statement. The question number one is, why did it have to give us that yichus of telling us that he was from Sharei Knesset Gedolah? Now it says that he said three things. Ala Torah, v'al avodah, v'al gemilut chasadim. And question number two, which is hopefully going to be a question which is going to be accompanying us through most of Perkei Avos, which is whenever you see a number of things mentioned, is there one underlying theme behind all three, or is there a message of why specifically these three were taught? And if there is a particular message behind these three and why specifically these three were taught, then is there an order? Is there an order of why it's first Torah and then why Avodah and then after Gemilut Chasadim? So question number two is why specifically these three? What's unique about them? What's the connection between them? And the order. That's question number two. Question number three is, there seems to be another statement brought in the end of this perek, on the end of the first perek, still in Perkei Avos, perek Rishon, on Mishnah Yud Ches, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, al adin ve'al ha'emes, ve'al ha'shalom. So, which three does the world stand on? Does the world stand on what Shimon HaTzadik was saying in this beginning of the perek, or is it what Shimon Gamliel was saying at the end of the perek, and teach a different list? Does the world stand on Torah and Avodah and Gemilut Chasadim, or does the world stand on Din and Emes and Shalom? Seems to be a contradiction. So we're going to start with Rabbeinu Yonah, and that's going to be an opening for us to go with Rabbeinu Yonah to the Ruach Chaim of Ruach Chaim of Volozhin and also the Maharal. Those are going to be our guides today. So it says Rabbeinu Yonah at the beginning, he says, answering the question, the third question that we just asked, why here does it say there's a list of three and the end has a different list of three? So he brings a different girsa. He has a different girsa that we have. But the girsa that we have in our Mishnah is exactly the same in both. It's al shlosha devrim ha'olam omed here and over there in Perek Aleph Mishnah Yud Ches. But in Ktav Yad and also in the Siddur, in the girsa that we have printed in the Siddur, it has a different girsa in each one. Over here in this Mishnah it has al shlosha devrim ha'olam omed, like we have, but at the end it has al shlosha devrim ha'olam kayam. There's a difference between the word omed and the word kayam. The word olam kayam, which it says later on, means once the world is up and running, what three things do you need to keep it going? However, when it says al shlosha devrim ha'olam omed, it's much more yesodi. It's much more foundational. It's not teaching, if you want to keep the running of the world going, what do you need? But rather it's teaching what is the purpose of the world being created to begin with. And to understand this deeply, let's see. At the end, what are the three things that it mentions there? It mentions ala din, ala emes, and a shalom. Those are things that you see that once the world is already running, and you want to keep the running of the world going, a community, a society working and functioning well, then you need din, you need judges, you need shalom, you need emes, you need truth in the community, you need to have a peaceful society. Those aren't reasons why Hashem would create the world to begin with, but they are the type of values that need to be imbued in a society in order for the running of the world to go smooth. That's the Mishnah at the end, on Yud Ches. And that's the answer to question number 3. That our Mishnah is teaching what the foundation of the world is. Let's hear that in the Rabbeinu Yonah. Rotzeh lomar, shebishvil shlosha devrim elu nivra ha'olam. So Rabbeinu Yonah is not just saying the world stands with these three things, but rather the world was created for these three things. Al shlosha devrim elu hem ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. שברה העולם על אשר בריאותיו עתידין להיות לרצון לפניו על ידי עשיית אלה דברים. Says the Rabbeinu Yonah, the reason for Hashem creating the world was to bring ratzon to him through specifically these three. And now that was question number 3, but now it makes question number 2 even stronger. Because if you now understand that Torah and Avoda and Gemilut Chasadim are the 3 reasons why Hashem created the world, but that's what brings Ratzon Lifnei Hashem, then you know that they're not 3 randomly picked things. You now understand these strings have a strong thread which is justifying the entire creation of the world. That will give the entire world standing, the whole reason why the world was created. So now we have to have a clearer understanding as to what the joint idea behind these 3 are, what the order is, what the message is. To this question a step further, I'll quote the Maharal and Derech Chaim. Derech Chaim is the parasuk from Yirmiyah, which Chazal darshan in many ways. One way in the context of Torah, which is what's relevant to us today, which we're going to quote again in a minute when we get to the Rechaim, but also they quote it in the context of Bris Milah. The pasuk from Yirmiyah, Im lo bariti yomam v'layla chokot shemayim v'aretz lo samti. That pasuk in Yirmiyah is saying that the reason for the foundation of the world is the bris. And what is the bris they're referring to? So one interpretation is Bris Milah. So this is the question, our question number 2. Question of the Maharal is, if you see that Yirmiyah says the reason of the creation of the world was for Bris Milah, then why isn't Bris Milah in this list over here? You see it's teaching something very, very profound over here when we need to understand what is the link, what is the theme that it's teaching us here in Ala Torah, Ala Avoda, Al Gemirus Chasadim. What is that theme that it's coming to teach us? What is the message? What's the value over here that it's teaching? So we're using the Maharal for now. We spoke about yesterday the idea of the number 3 being 3 facets of man. We're going to use a different number 3 now which connects. There's 3 directions of man. And these 3 directions are all about relationships. This is based on the Maharal. The Maharal writes, there's 3 facets of man. The way that man relates to himself, Ben Adam La'atzmo, the way that a man relates to Hashem, which is Ben Adam La'makom, and the way that a man relates to others, which is Ben Adam La'chavero. And those 3 are the 3 which are being paralleled here in our Mishnah. Ala Torah, that's Ben Adam La'atzmo. We'll see why in a minute. Ala Avoda, that's Ben Adam La'makom. Al Gemilut Chasadim, that's Ben Adam La'chavero. So we're going to go into it in more depth, but just to state what we've said so far, the reason for HaKadosh Baruch Hu was creating the world was in order for man to perfect, to have shleimus in 3 different areas. In the area of himself, in the area of his relationship with Hashem, and in the area of how he relates to other people. And it's giving us a clear direction of how a person can create that perfection. The way that man creates perfection in himself is through Torah. That's Ala Torah. The way that a man creates perfection with his relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is through Tefillah. Or originally Korbanos. Initially it was Korbanos, and then Tefillah. The way that a man creates perfection in his relationship with other people is through doing acts of chesed. So let's put that on pause for a moment and go back to question number 1. We'll come back to it and explain it in more depth. The first question that we asked was, why does the Mishnah say the Yichus, that Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik was from the Shairei Knesset HaGedolah? Why does it mention that? Why is that part relevant? Now we're going to get into the thick of it. We spoke about how there was a transformation of era. That until this era, the era of the Shairei Knesset HaGedolah, the Knesset HaGedolah, there was still Nevuah. Meaning that if a Jew wanted to know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from him, it was very clear to him. He would go to the Navi, he would say to the Navi, this is what I need to know. The Navi would give him direction. Like the story of Shaul, who was even for a very simple matter, like looking for his donkeys. He went to the Navi, he went to Shmuel, and Shmuel gave him direction. Actually, you're going to be the king. Even greater than he intended. There was clear direction of the will of Hashem. Shimon HaTzadik is the end of that, the last of the generation of that era. Shimon HaTzadik Mishayarei Knesset HaGedolah. He's the end of that era. And it's coming to tell us a profound message. That there are times in your life when you will have clarity what Hashem wants from you to do. You know clearly. And the standing that you have, the amud that you have, is the clear message that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends you what you need to do. Shimon HaTzadik begins the era where we've lost that standing. In the Gemara in Sanhedrin, it says there were 3 eras in mankind. There was 2,000 years of Tohu Vavohu, then there was 2,000 years of Torah, and then we ended 2,000 years of Mashiach. We can give a mashal for a child growing up. When a child grows up initially, he goes through Tohu Vavohu. A young child, there's no clarity, there's no direction. If you want, Yisrael Moshe had his 2nd birthday just 2 days ago now, and Tohu Vavohu in the house, everything is a mess. At a young age, everything is a mess. No clarity, no clear, nothing. Then a child goes to school, and in school it's Torah. It's a period of Torah. He's getting direction. Eventually, he's learning, and he's been given all the tools. He's been taught halacha. He's been taught yirat shamayim. He's been taught clarity. And they say to him, okay, now we've given you the skills. We have given you the proficiency. You're on your own. Go. Learn by yourself. Work by yourself. You're on your own now. Let's see you. So those are the 3 stages. You first have a stage of Tohu Vavohu where everything is not clear. Then you have a stage of Torah where you're being given instruction directly and it's clear to you, but you're not building yourself yet because you haven't been given your independence. Then comes the stage of Mashiach. And the stage of Mashiach is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to us, I've given you the skills, I've given you the tools now go do it yourself. Shimon HaTzadik is exactly on that brink of the end of school and the beginning of independence. They're leaving the era of Torah, where we had direct instruction of Torah, and entering the period of Mashiach, where we are now bringing down that Torah into our world by us thinking and us developing our understanding. So when Shimon HaTzadik, when it says in Perkei Avos, he was Meshayrei Knesset Gedola, it's telling us the era of the Knesset Gedola has ended. He is the end, the Shayrei Knesset Gedola. There's no more Nevi'im. The Ezra and the Nehemiah, who were at the beginning of the Shayrei Knesset Gedola, they no longer are here. And we need something that's going to give us standing, that's going to give us an amud, la'amod. What will give us standing in a time where we no longer have the clear direction? And here comes Shimon HaTzadik, and he gives us 3 facets. That if man understands these 3 facets and functions with them, that will give him his standing. I'm going to go into it in more depth now. It's very interesting, and the Shut Ra'avan writes that sometimes the Mishnah uses the word derachim, Aisha niknet b'shlosha derachim, and sometimes uses the word dvarim. Like in our Mishnah, shlosha devarim ha'olam, or when the last speaks about 48 devarim she'atorah niknet, it used the word devarim. Ra'avan writes that derachim is where you can use any one of the 3. B'shlosha derachim ha'isha niknet. You don't need to use all 3 of them, either with kesef, or with shtar, or with bia. Any one of those 3 suffice to acquire the woman. You only need one of the 3. But when it says al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed, it means that you need all 3. All 3 of these are needed for man's completion. Or in the Mishnah at the end of Perek Vav, all 48 ways to acquire Torah are needed for man to acquire Torah. So we're now speaking about Shimon HaTzadik, who is leaving the era of Nevuah. And we're entering a period where we don't have clarity. We've been thrown out to be independent. And we feel we don't have anything to stand on. And he's giving us the amudim, which you need all 3 of. And if you have all 3 of these standings, you will have the capability to function in this world. And if you miss them, you won't be able to function. So Ala Torah is the first one. Now here we need a very clear understanding of the Ruach Chaim. The Ruach Chaim also brings the pasuk that we quoted earlier in Sefer Yirmiyah. Im lo bariti yomam v'layla uchokot shamayim v'aretz lo samti. And these are the words of the Nefesh HaChaim, the Ruach Chaim. Rotzeh lomar, shamayim v'aretz b'yachad lo hayu mitchabrim ilulei haTorah. Ki hashpa'a yoredet hakol al yedei hitkashrut. כי גשמיות בעצמו אין לו כוח ומציאות כלל, לולי כוח העליון השוכן עליו ומקיימו, וכוח הרוחני היורד מלמעלה מקבל שפעו מגבוה ממנו. Says the Ruach Chaim, and also reflected in the words of the Maharal. When a person thinks of the facet that he has of his self, as we spoke about, Torah is the Ben Adam La'atzmo, a person's own understanding, his mind, his thoughts. Torah is the highest level where a person connects to himself. When we speak about a person's seichel, there's two types of seichel. There's a seichel of the world, wisdom of the world, and a seichel of Torah. And there's shamayim va'aretz between them. When you have a wisdom of the world, that you learn the wisdom of the world and you become more intelligent. But it does not change your essence. It will not transform Adam la'atzmo. However, when a person learns Torah, then he's learning much more than just a new wisdom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu designed the world in a way that all the shefa that comes down into the world comes down through Torah. Which means that when you're learning another wisdom, a science, then you become more intelligent. But when you learn Torah, you open up the shamayim to bring down the heavenly influence upon yourself, which transforms your essence. It doesn't transform just your mind, that you have more of an understanding, but it transforms Ben Adam La'atzmo, who you are. And therefore you could have an example of the Nazis, Yamach Shema, who as far as culture and intelligence is concerned, they were very developed. Their seichel was very developed. But then when it came to their midas, to their essence, they became behemoths. They became chayos, tolfos, the lowest form of man. Seichel is not activated by wisdoms of the world in a way that it brings down an influence of Hashem to transform you. Torah does. And that's the pasuk in a much deeper way. Im lo bariti chukot shamayim va'aretz lo samti. Shamayim va'aretz biyachad lo hayu mitchabrim ilolei haTorah. Shamayim represents the heavenly influence of Hashem. Aretz represents us in this world. In order for it to be a hashpa'ah come down from Hashem to this world, not only that we will have understanding, but that it will transform the essence of man. That only comes through learning Torah. To summarize the first point, the three pillars that Rabbi Shimon is teaching us are pillars which transform the essence of man, which is the purpose of why Hashem created this world. You know, every day it says the word Tov, except for one day where it says Tov, the next day to make up for the one before, of the 6 changes to make reparations. When it comes to man, it doesn't say the word Tov. Because all the other facets of this world, when they were created, they were good as they were. They didn't need a hashlama. They didn't need improvement. When man was created, it doesn't say Tov, because it wasn't yet good. Hashem made us in a way we still need hashlama. We still need the improvement. That comes through the learning of Torah. So the seichel of man, the wisdom of man, doesn't come through learning other sciences in a way that will transform our essence. It comes through learning Torah. And that's the first amud. That's the Torah influence coming down to us. The second amud parallels the leif, parallels the emotions of man, where man feels a connection to Hashem. And this is the avodah. In times of the Beis HaMikdash, it was expressed through the korbanos, where a man gave himself totally over to Hashem through the korban, as the Ramban writes. It was as if man saw he was sacrificing himself through this animal of Hashem. And after the era of the Beis HaMikdash, it is expressed through tefillah, where a man's emotions are being given over to Hashem. And here too, we say the same idea. Rabbi Shimon teaches us the second faculty of man is man's emotions. And that's represented by avodah. What it means to say is that you could experience emotion through many areas. You could sing, you could dance, you could go for a run, and that could get your emotions up. And it does. It gives you an experience of an emotional high. But that won't transform your essence. It will be temporary. The person goes to a kumbh and he dances in the moment. He has an emotional high. But it doesn't transform a man's essence. Which amud is that which transforms the man's essence? That is the pillar of man. That when you don't anymore have the vua to tell you how to hold yourself up, and you're trying on the level of your emotion to connect to Hashem, bin adam lemakom. What is the way? Says Rabbi Shimon, avoda. Avoda is the way. Which means to say that when a person has a feeling of closeness to Hashem through his davening, that is an experience of emotion which transforms his essence. That's true emotion being expressed. That's the reason Hashem made us with emotions, so that we will be able to turn to Him in tefillah and daven to Him. As David HaMelech said in Tehillim, "V'ani kirvat Hashem lito." The feeling of goodness that man has comes through kirvas Hashem. You can have other types of emotion, the short term, but the long term emotion, the emotion that truly builds the essence of man, why Hashem created us. Like Rabbeinu Yonah wrote at the beginning, what we said, these aren't just things to keep the world going. These are things of the purpose, the essence of why Hashem created the world to begin with. That's tefillah, which parallels the emotional connection that we have to Hashem. When maybe you only feel it once a year on Rosh Hashanah, that Zevekas with Hashem through davening. Maybe you feel it every day. Maybe you only feel it once a lifetime. But that's the purpose of why Hashem created emotion. Throughout tefillah to connect to Hashem. And then comes the third one, the third faculty of man, which is the faculty of man, which is his actions, which is the ben adam lachavero, which is the gemilut chasadim. And that third faculty of man represents the following idea. There are many actions that you could do which will give you a high, which will give you a feeling of safety and satisfaction. You could eat food, and it will give you a good feeling. Your body will feel good. You can go jogging, and your body feels alive. However, all of those things don't build the essence of man. They are the purpose of why you created to do actions with it. There's a famous statement of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who says, "My gashmius is my gashmius, but my friend's gashmius is my ruchnius." When I do an act of physicality for myself, it only gives me what I need for the time being, temporarily. But when I do an act of kindness for someone else, providing food for someone else, doing chasadim for another man, that's building my essence. So let's summarize the points that we've made. Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik we are told that he's from the Sharei Knesset Hagadolah, because this is the final message we have to see us through the 2,000 years of the Mashiach, in order to fulfill the message that Hashem has created the world for. He would say on three things the world would stand, and now we understand, based on Rabbi Yonah and Maharal, that these things aren't just standing, meaning keeping the world going, like in Mishnah Yudches, but these are three things which was the purpose of the entire world being created. All those 6 days of creation didn't say total, because that wasn't a hashlama, that wasn't a perfection of the world. When is the perfection of the world expressed? What is the purpose of Hashem creating the world? For the 6th day, for man's being created, which the Tov Hashem didn't give us directly. We make it ourselves. Hashem left us imperfect for us to complete ourselves. And in this Mishnah, we're being told how to have standing. What gives us our standing? Our purpose of our being created. And that's with 3 faculties. The faculty of Ben Adam La'atzmo, making yourself. Ben Adam La'makom, your connection, your relationship with Hashem. Ben Adam La'chavero, your relationship with man. And this is teaching you how to build it. You can do things for yourself which aren't long-lasting. You can develop your mind, you can develop your intelligence through many wisdoms, but that does not transform your essence. Torah transforms your essence. It opens up the heavenly spheres, as the Rav Chaim said, to bring down the Shefa of Hashem, that it transforms not only your intellect, but your very essence to becoming a Ben Torah, a living expression of Hashem's Torah in this world. Avoda is our perfection of our relationship, of our emotions, which is to be expressed with HaKadosh Baruch Hu through korbanos or tefillah. Any other emotions can give you a temporary high, but the building of man comes through his emotional connection with Hashem through David. And Gemilut Chasadim is teaching us how to use our action. You can use your action to give yourself pleasure, and it will give you short-term pleasure. But the shleimus of man, what gives you standing, what the creation of man was for, was the ruchnius, was the gashmis of your friend. Your own ruchnius is your gashmis of your friend. Gemilut Chasadim is the way that you perfect your actions. Now we can understand why this mission is so crucial. And teaches specifically these three things. These three are the basic essence of building of man, which we need in order to get to the 2,000 years of Mashiach.
Thank you, Rabbi.